Dogmen in Michigan that hunt people in the forests. Demons from Dover or from the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. Is it really hard for us to believe that Bigfoot doesn't roam this country? These topics and more, only on Cryptid Conversations.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another wonderful episode of Cryptid Conversations. I'm your host, Blue. Joining me today, back from his 1 week hiatus, Torsten. We got Jasper down here below me, and we got Michelle over there in the corner, in her corner, being Miss Coffee Drinker Aficionado.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I was being inappropriate because that's.
Well, you're always inappropriate, and we're going to be heading that way when we start talking about our topic today. Our topic today, ladies and gentlemen, is skinwalkers and unraveling the truth behind them. There's a lot of things having to do with skinwalkers that is a lot of misinformation due to pop culture, where people just Google the information and they take bits and pieces and put it out there. I mean, we see videos with, deer with their neck bent in a weird way, and that's just a deer that hit the side of a car and that's how it healed. Or animals acting in a funny way that, they shouldn't be. And really, when it comes down to skinwalkers are part of the Navajo Nation. So first off, we're going to do a story. We're going to do a story from Jasper's found us something that she thinks is quite interesting when it comes to skinwalkers. So go ahead, Jasper. What do we got?
Now, I'll leave it to the commenters to decide whether this is a true tale or not. But it's titled, "It Had a Dog's Body with Human Hands and Feet."
Okay, go for it.
The writer was spending a month with their cousins at their grandma's house. It was August, and their cousins' ages ranged from 10 to 15, and the one who posted this information was the oldest. They were staying with a 10, 13, and 14-year-old. They had stayed up all night telling scary stories often. But one night, a few weeks in, they all decided to make a campfire out back. Their grandma's house is in a rural suburb. The neighbors aren't too far when you're driving down the road to her house, but in the backyard, it's a thick forest with man-made paths through it. Each house is on a hill, so only part of the basement is actually underground, but that's not important till later. They're towards the east side of her yard in a smallish patch of open land. You can't see the neighboring yards from there, and there was probably 3/4 of a mile to each side of them that belonged to their grandma. It was maybe 11 at night, and they were playing Truth or Dare after telling scary stories. And the 14-year-old cousin dared the writer and the 13-year-old cousin to go walk through the paths for 10 minutes or so. The writer said yes right away, as they weren't easily scared and rather level-headed, but the younger cousin was a bit more hesitant. They didn't bring a flashlight because it wasn't pitch dark yet, and he could both see enough not to die. They were both walking through the paths for about 5 minutes and could barely see the fire through the trees when they decided to turn. In the middle of the path was a large dog-like creature hunched over with its front hands an inch from the ground. What the writer remembers most in that moment was how its eyes were such a bright white color, and it was a humanoid dog-shaped with a human-like head and a dog-like body, but with human hands and feet. It looked right at them, and the writer was paralyzed with fear as it dashed away in the opposite directions from them, towards a creek that ran through the yard. Eventually, they and their cousins screamed, and their other cousins and the grandma ran to them. They say they don't remember much because they were really disoriented and they couldn't think properly, but they did wake up in bed, so they assumed they were brought up to the house. All the kids slept in the basement in a big room with sliding glass doors to the outside. As the room was on the side that wasn't underground, the writer's bed was pressed against the big glass window, and they could see the cousins playing outside down below. The house was in Michigan, so it gets slightly chilly in the end of the August, and there was a slight breeze, so they put on a jacket and ran to them outside, skipping breakfast, not wanting to miss out on anything fun. When the writer got down home, they could tell the other kids weren't playing, but rather were running to get their grandma. Her dogs, both of them, were dead, ripped apart. That night, they all went to bed early. The writer woke up maybe 2 in the morning because they felt something hit their head. Their cousins were all sitting on the double bed opposite on the other side of the room. There was one bunk bed and 2 double beds. The double beds were for the writer and the 14-year-old cousin. They were being quiet and staring at the writer. The 13-year-old nodded his head toward the window. The writer froze. They looked afraid. The writer turned their head slightly to the side and saw a really messed up looking face pressed up against the window with gaping eyes looking down at them. They screamed loudly and bolted. The grandma called the police after they told her what happened, and they found nothing. The writer went home after that and has never been there in the night ever since.
Wow. Okay, so after hearing this story, I'm going to say it was definitely not a skinwalker.
Agreed. It
Yeah.
was something.
It was something akin to it, but not a skinwalker per se. When it comes to skinwalkers, there's a finite ability that they have and a finite area in which they traverse. So what they were probably dealing with is something more like a shape changer, a mimic, something of that nature.
A mimic sounds definitely.
Mimic is more like what
Mhm.
I would actually more lean towards in that story,
It's interesting though.
but it's
I've always
definitely
thought of
interesting.
I've always thought of mimics more of like trying to coerce you to come into the forest with them. So the fact that it ran into the forest without trying to coerce them makes me lean towards not quite being a mimic, but still possibly being a mimic.
It might be a topic for another day.
There you go. I like that one.
Hey, we'll see what happens. Yeah, when it comes to skinwalkers, there's varying degrees on what they can and cannot do, and what forms they choose to take. But judging from the sound of it, they were dealing with something way different than the skinwalker. Plus, it's in Michigan, and that's not usually in the range of where the Navajo Nation is. So, for a skinwalker to be there, could it be? Yeah. But generally, they stick to their own nation. They stay within their own borders. I mean, that's my own opinion. Torsten, what do you got? What do you think?
I'd agree, definitely not a skinwalker. I'd say more of a shapeshifter or somebody or something messing with things that they shouldn't have been, and it's gone very bloody wrong.
Yeah.
Messing with powers that they shouldn't be messing with.
Still an interesting story. There's so much out there that is left unknown.
Yeah, it's definitely the possibility of something unknown. Yeah, I mean, to me, it just doesn't sound like your typical skinwalker. Well, and I say typical, and I actually mean it doesn't sound like a skinwalker to me, based on the information that I've found. Speaking of information found, we're going to go to the Michelle-opedia section of our wonderful podcast. Michelle, you have information about skinwalkers in pop culture.
I do. So this topic is pretty popular when it comes to the internet. You put in any search in YouTube, in TikTok, wherever, type in Skinwalker, there are 173,000 people who are talking about it, which makes it pretty interesting. That being said, if it's interesting, it's going to be in TV or movies or literature or one of those things. So I want to talk about the three main categories: film, TV, and literature.
Mhm.
But there is also some sub genres, video games, web comics, anime. It is
Mm,
all over the place. It is pervasive, especially among like supernatural based TV shows, obviously. But let's talk
absolutely.
about film first.
Oh my goodness, here we go. One of my biggest gripes when it comes to Skinwalkers.
What's that? Film?
The film.
Yeah,
They never get it right.
they never get it right. Which the first one that I'm going to bring up is something that goes back to my youth, The Hobbit, the original Hobbit,
Hmm.
where Bjorn
Yeah,
is it's called a skin
Beorn.
changer.
Beorn.
Beorn.
He's a skin changer,
Yeah.
yeah.
Skin changer, and he hates dwarves.
But he hates orcs more.
He hates orcs more, but he hates dwarves. But I like that depiction because
Mhm.
that was probably what introduced me to skinwalkers as a tiny human.
Okay. I
So
mean, it is a great depiction. Um, One
it
of the
doesn't
things,
specifically call it a skinwalker though. So
no,
that's what kind of sticks
they
out.
in Tolkien's world, it was a skin changer.
Yeah.
Um, uh, you also got to remember, tales of skinwalkers wouldn't have been overseas by this time that Tolkien wrote The Hobbit. Um, there were many skin changing or shape shifting beings already in European culture. I mean,
Yes.
look at the werewolf. Um,
Which we will talk about shortly.
yeah, I mean, multiple things. But I
Mhm.
mean, uh, the Beorn and then his subsequent uh, family after the Beornings all had the ability to change shape, and they were much larger than normal men. Um,
Yep.
and they were all bears, werebear or whatever you want to call it.
Kate's getting ahead of me. Kate, I love you.
Yeah, Tolkien used more fairy lore. Thank you,
You did. You did.
fairy lore. Yeah, thank you, Kate. Kate,
Yes.
Kate, down in the comment section. Kate is our moderator extraordinaire. She gets us back on track when we fall off.
Yes.
But she
That's
knows
true.
her shit when it comes to certain things. And
Yes.
when it comes to Tolkien, trust me, there's nobody other than her that I would go to in terms of some of the Tolkien lore.
So the second and last film that I'm going to talk about is from 1996, a movie called Werewolf.
Okay.
So it never specifically states Skinwalker,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of references to that kind of lore. And there's a reference made that calls someone who is a shape-shifting type of entity the white man's werewolf. And that stuck with me.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just found it very interesting that that's how it was referred to in this movie. But other than that, that's the only reason I brought it up, because that was just funny. The white man's werewolf.
The white man's werewolf.
Yeah.
I mean, werewolf lore and skin changer lore intertwines in one aspect. There was a man convicted, I believe it was in France. I don't
The
remember
Beast
his
of
name.
Jardavon.
No, that's a completely different thing. The Beast of Javadon was determined to be, well, is theorized to be a big cat that somebody just let out, and it reproduced with its like. But
Gilles Garnier.
Gilles Gagne, thank you.
Gilles Gagne, 1574, was a French serial killer, cannibal, and hermit convicted of being a werewolf for the murder of at least 4 children, also known as the Hermit of Saint Bonneau, and was dubbed the Werewolf of Dole.
Yes, because he, when asked, he said he was given a skin of a wolf from the devil. And when he put the skin on, it allowed him to become that of a wolf. And he was convicted of unaliving multiple women and 4 women and multiple younglings, which they found evidence of the younglings and the women in his home.
Yes, but also
And
the interesting piece is that during his trial, he was found guilty of the crimes of lycanthropy and witchcraft, and was burned at the stake January 18th, 1574.
oh wow, okay, well, but that's very similar to a skinwalker. I mean, wearing the skin of an animal and taking on traits of said animal, being able to walk in their form and feel what they feel, and this, that, and the other thing. It's very intertwined. But
Yes.
even at that time, those two cultures did not intersect at all.
Right, right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of intersecting when you look at the cultural lore of certain things.
And you know, when they're using the idea of skinwalkers in pop culture, they're using a lot of the nuance behind a skinwalker. They're using the what is it called?
Transmogrification.
Transmogrification.
Yeah, thank you. Mogrification.
Yeah. Transmogrification, that word that is hard to say. They're using the telepathy, they're using the voice changing aspects, they're using that like mimic you know, those kind of things to insinuate that they're talking about a shapeshifter or a skinwalker versus saying it outright.
Yeah.
Which is where we get to the TV pieces.
Okay, here we go.
There are so many that I had to limit myself to the top 5.
Okay.
So I'm gonna save the best for last because Kate already mentioned it. Haven. There was one, I think it was like one season. It was a pretty decent show, but it was weird. They had a serial killer who wears the skins of people after killing them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there was lots of the pieces about that character called this thing a skinwalker. It was very interesting. Smallville, if you remember our young Clark Kent,
I do.
they had a couple of episodes where it was a wolf shifter that was named that name that I can't say.
The Anagloshi.
Yeah, that. It was named that in the show. So very interesting little piece to that. X-Files. We all, I mean, that's a pretty much a
everybody
given.
Remembers X-Files.
There was a episode called Shapes that features a Native American werewolf that during its transformations shed its skin in a snake-like manner. Interesting. And then let's go ahead and just say it. True Blood, shifters. They have shifters. They can change into animals, and the lore with True Blood was skinwalkers are shifters who have killed an immediate family member. So that's the lore that they took with them from. I know it's not skinwalkers, it's Wendigo. So
no, that's not the Wendigo.
It's not the Wendigo. Who is it that had killed a person? If you have killed, then you become this thing. I thought that was the way to go.
It's part of Skinwalker culture, part of the Skinwalker lore. They did get a little bit of it right. They got a little bit of it wrong.
They got a lot of it wrong. Let's call it what it is.
Well, yes.
They did okay.
I mean, in pop culture, I mean, you see a lot of interpretation to the source.
Yes, but in pop
but
culture,
you'll never see a
truly.
They're trying to grab you.
The audience. They're trying to get us. So, and then, Kate has already, Team Dean. Yes, ma'am. Except I'm Team Sam. So whatever. Supernatural. Various. Team Crowley. Nice. Various people who can turn into dogs and can be killed by silver. So there's lots of that. A little bit of literature, there's
silver doesn't even factor in to
I know,
the Anagloshi.
So there's a book. There's a book, and if you haven't read it, it's a good read. It's not 100% accurate, but it's got a really good story. It's called The Outsider from 2019, and it is about a Native American skinwalker.
Okay.
Kind of their side of the story, and it's interesting, like that. Not a story about of people being terrorized by a skinwalker, but it's their side, and it's a really really good story. Video games, they're all over the place. Skinwalkers are everywhere, but I love that there's such a dichotomy between all of the different TV shows and movies and things where, yes, they're not all 100% accurate, but there's such an interesting, it keeps the interest in these supernatural creatures in mainstream. So I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, when it comes to mainstream media and pop culture, I mean, there was a really crummy like B movie version called Skinwalkers, and these were not Skinwalkers. It was a werewolf movie. They just used the name.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to grab an audience. You're trying to grab onto and keep people in the seats so that way they'll watch your movie or watch your show or watch your your episodes or whatever the hell you're doing. But when it comes down to it, and this is where I become a little bit of a snob. I like authenticity. I like truth to the source. And I solely believe that there is somebody out there that will make an interesting movie based on the truth of what these things are. But that's my opinion. Torsten, what do you got?
I want to see a movie with Sam Jackson as the Skinwalker.
It's unfortunate because within TV and movies and books and that, they don't really want the truth. They want something fantastical to draw somebody in, but they don't cover all the finite points because it takes away and slows the narrative down for them to explain in detail what this is. They just want it to go boom, 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 boom from point to point to point to point to point.
The truth doesn't sell.
No, it doesn't. You read sort of true life stories biographies, and you're like, there is no way this happened. It's too unbelievable to be believable. Whereas
Well, I mean, you see that in a lot of
they make the
biographies.
unbelievable more believable.
I can't wait until I get my biography out there, because I'm going to make sure whoever writes it just adds in some of the most ridiculous bullshit that has ever been said. Like, crazy stuff.
Listen, my life is very uneventful. It just has small moments in time that were really fucking cool. But I digress. Yeah, truth doesn't sell unless it's true crime.
Yeah.
And then the bloodier the better. And
Yeah.
as a true crime,
Yeah.
lover of all things true crime,
Yeah.
I want to see the crime scene photos. I'm not lying.
We're all morbid. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
Jasper,
Do you remember
what do you
that
got?
website that had all that stuff?
Oh,
What
yeah.
was that?
Gog,
Rotten.
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 That's
Yeah,
what it was. Rotten.
That was so disgusting. It was the best.
Jasper, what's your take on skinwalkers and pop culture?
I don't really have much of a take, but what she said about werewolves, it made me wonder if the creature from my story, because it did have like a dog-like body, if that might have been a werewolf instead of just a mimic.
Well, I mean, in Michigan, you got the Michigan Dog Man. So, I mean, it could have been that.
That's true.
It's worth a deep dive to see what
It is worth a deep dive.
Think about it.
Maybe that's what we do next week. We talk about the Dog Man, Michigan Dog Man.
I vote yes.
What do you guys vote?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Were you
Jasper
speaking
says
English?
yes.
I couldn't understand a word that you just said, sir.
Who?
All I
mumbles
heard was blah,
McGee.
blah, 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 blah.
He said, sounds good to me.
Blah, blah, blah,
Look,
blah.
just because I speak proper English and not
Proper.
bastardized English, I will not be bullied by the Americans.
We speak the
how much
original English.
Do you know what
No,
version of
you
English I
don't.
speak, Torsten?
Yes, we do.
You know what version?
No, you speak American English.
1776 is what version I speak, sir.
1812.
That's the only thing he's
That's
got
what
is
I'm going to say.
1812. That's the
1812.
only thing he's got is 1812.
That's all he's got.
1812,
Who bailed your ass out in
1950s.
World War II? Who
Didn't
bailed your
bail
ass
us
out in
out,
World
bailed
War II?
France out.
We bailed
Okay,
everybody out.
so
Anyway, okay, back on track.
we are way
Bring
off
it in,
topic.
lock it down. Way off topic here. Okay, here we go. All right, I've got information. And my information comes from a very reliable Navajo Nation member. So sit back, relax, and listen to this. Skinwalkers. Let's start off with everything you think you know about skinwalkers is a lie, except for the very few of you out there that actually know what it has nothing to do with skinwalkers.
I know.
Shh. Listen.
I don't know how to be quiet.
I know you don't. Except for a very few amount of people out there that actually know what they're talking about. Skinwalkers, or the Navajo, or what the Navajo call the Anagloshi, are paranormal in terms of what their powers entail. Roughly 80% of the people on the internet and social media sites that say they've had an encounter or seen skinwalkers are actually wrong. They're seeing something completely different. The allure of the hot topic of skinwalkers is just what makes it actually hard to identify what you are actually experiencing. Now, where does the legend come from? Well, hundreds of years ago,
Hundreds.
hundreds of years ago, and the Navajo Nation. Medicinal people, aka medicine men, would journey to the 4 sacred mountains, 2 in Colorado, 1 in Arizona, and 1 in New Mexico. These people would only have a few days to complete this journey. So the spiritual people of the tribe would teach them the power to travel to lands to do good, the power to shapeshift into the deer, coyote, the wolf, the hawk. So that way they would be able to travel from place to place and heal people. This is the legend. But learning this ability was a difficult task. This ability took years to learn, and there were people who, when learning this ability, became troubled, and they were disturbed by dark thoughts in their head of, I will never learn this process. I'll never be able to master it. And that's when evil and darkness heard their words and said, we can make this easier for you.
I'm in.
The people would ask, what do I need to do? And evil and darkness said, first, you must sacrifice an immediate loved one. Whether
Done.
that be a lover, a wife, a child, a mother, a father, or a grandfather or mother.
Why are you trying to convince me? I'm already doing it.
Stop. Anyway, they had to be directly connected to the person's heart.
Yeah, easy. Am I going to get unlimited power? I'm in.
Shush. Okay. The other steps to this process are kept secret on the Navajo Nation because of the fact that they're considered sacred. So most of them, we won't talk about the rest of the process. That was just one aspect of what they would have to do. But needless to say, the rest of the process is gruesome as fuck.
I'm still in.
Okay, let's see. Once a person has completed their tasks, they were now able to learn how to shapeshift into evil and darkness. Welcome in, Phoenix.
You already sold me on this.
I know I already sold you because you have a dark heart. Anyway.
True. It's true.
Anyway, let's see. Where was I? Okay. One thing people forget is where these skinwalkers come from. They come from the Navajo Nation, which holds a lot of power within its borders. Now, the reason why it holds a lot of power within its borders is because of the fact that within the Navajo Nation, you have many ley lines. And those are powers from the earth and strength in that area. And the thing about skinwalkers is that they draw their power from within their borders and the natural landscape around them. Is it possible for a skinwalker to leave this area and learn how to use the power of whatever landscape they're in? Possibly, but highly unlikely, according to the Navajo Nation. Now, what are some of the things that skinwalkers can do? They could turn into almost any animal within their borders of the Navajo Nation. Typically the coyote, the buck, the wolf, or the skins that were available for them to wear, mark, and change into. Now, when I say mark, they would mark the skins with their own symbol, dark symbols to change into that dark. Go ahead.
So they have to have the skin of the thing that they're trying to shapeshift into for this to work. They can't just like think of like I'm gonna be a deer now and be a deer. They have to actually basically they have
They
to
hunt
have
them down.
slaughtered that animal,
Yes.
skinned it,
And say certain prayers, certain ceremonial words and things like that nature over the dead animal as they are marking it with their dark symbols.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Things like the bear and the cougar were sacred animals and could not be tainted by the darkness. So
I feel
those,
that as a
because you
human
are a cougar.
Yeah, as a human cougar, I get it.
All right. Now, one of the things that they were able to do that they learned to master is the art of mimicry. And by mimicking the voices of loved ones and the voices of the person they are attacking.
So they were trying to bait others by using those mimicked voices. So what you're saying is that they were master baiters.
Master manipulators, not
And
baiters.
you're welcome.
Anyway. I'm a master baiter. Anyway.
You knew what you did when you added me here.
I know what I did. One of their abilities is that they have incredible speed. They're ridiculously fast in terms of people have been driving through the Navajo Nation in the middle of the night. And mind you, in the Navajo Nation, there's not really a speed limit. So people drive like maniacs. And they have reported sightings of strange men running alongside cars at 80 miles an hour and up. Their speed is unmatched by anything. They're almost like the Flash. Go ahead, Michelle. I see you chomping at the bit there.
So in the top corner of the Navajo Nation, I've been to this exact spot, the Four Corners. It's where Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico like meet, and there's like a little thing right there.
Yep.
And when you're standing in it, your 3/4 of your body is in the Navajo Nation, and 1/4 is not because you're literally standing on the Four Corners. Anyway, that was just interesting. I went there several times when I was growing up.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Some other things that are at their disposal that skinwalkers like to use. They use special bone dog whistles that, when blown into, they will disable the home's protector. Mainly, these enchanted bone whistles will cause your barking dog to stop barking and go to sleep. They are very efficient in terms of knocking them out and allowing them to get into the property to come after you. Another one of the things that's known about them is that they're grave robbers. They will go into cemeteries and acquire the bones, and sometimes even, if the body's fresh enough, skin of the deceased, and use them to create weapons, which they use. One of those weapons being a bone dust that they say specific incantations over, and effectively are able to curse you. Another one of their abilities is they have the ability to paralyze you to the point where you can't move. If you're ever in the presence of a skinwalker, you'll find that you can't move at all. You're paralyzed. You can't move because you're afraid. Uh, it's that uh, fight or flight reflex disappears. You are literally stuck. And that's usually when they'll come up with the bone dust and blow it in your face and effectively curse you unless you can get somebody who can counteract the curse and the effects of this bone dust.
I like bone dust blown in my face.
You like cream anyway. Other bone weapons are fashioned from human bone, such as knives, arrowheads, and these are all dipped within this this dangerous bone dust that is used by the Anagloshi to paralyze people.
I
Now,
thought you sold me on the idea of becoming a skinwalker earlier, but now I'm in.
another ability that they have is that they can scale damn near anything because of where they live. They live out in the wilds, away from people, but they'll journey in and be able to. That's why if you fall asleep on the Navajo Nation and you're indoors and whatnot, you'll hear footsteps on your roof. You'll hear scratching at your doors. You'll hear maybe a coyote's cry. These multiple things you'll hear in the course of one night, and they're very adept at causing people to have great amounts of anxiety. Now, along with shape changing and all that, you got to remember these were people who were studying to become full blown medicine people, so they know how to create dark versions of things to hurt people. They're very elusive. They blend in with people in society if they have to, but for general rule of thumb, they're very solitary people. Now, one of the ways to counteract being affected by their paralytic ability is to carry some white ash with you.
Have a lot of white ash.
What happens is you make a fire using whatever wood you say some prayer, some ceremonial prayers and things like that over the fire as it burns down, becomes ash, and then you collect that ash, and that ash will protect you from the skinwalker. But some of the things that they have are ceremonial weapons in order to fight the Anagloshi. People hear ceremonial weapons, they go, oh, well, we tomahawks and bows and arrows and this, that, and the other thing. Silver, silver has no effect on them. They really don't care. Bows and arrows you will generally see because that was their main ability to protect their people. They'll attack. If you are attacked by an Anagloshi, you can shoot it with firearm, but that bullet's going to go right through them because when they attack, they're in their more spiritual form. So a bullet's not going to affect them. So these sacred weapons are dipped in white ash. They're prayed over. They've been through battles. They have ceremonial meaning to them. Ready for this one? I bet you didn't know this. The Navajo people actually had interactions with Japanese warriors. Hundreds of years ago, they came from across the sea. They called them the Beetle Warriors because they had this, and depicted in drawings and things from the time, basically samurai armor. And they said they had blades that shone like the moon. The curved blades of the Beetle Warriors. And some of these tribal members were gifted ceremonial swords, and they actually have katanas from Japan on that as part of the Navajo reservations, like spiritual weapons. It's really freaking cool. They not many of them talk about it, but there's a couple of people who know about them. So, but they would
Also,
use those as well to combat
point of interest.
skinwalkers.
Point of interest. There's evidence of the Japanese landing in Peru and Chile.
Mhm.
You can find evidence of that in a lot of the local cuisine, because there are some items in Peru that have a combination of like the peppers and soy sauce together. So it's interesting. And then there is also evidence that they came up the coast through Nicaragua and Guatemala into Mexico and into the United States.
So
You're welcome.
there you go. That's like even like on the eastern coast. Vikings got here before Christopher Columbus. So
We don't mention him.
yeah, no, we don't like him.
Mm-mm.
I'd rather believe that it was Leif Erikson that discovered America. But that's me.
No one discovered America. It was already here.
It was already here.
It was already here.
Well,
Happening.
rediscovered.
It was rediscovered. Yeah.
Columbus should have went down in the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so that's my information that I dug up on the Anagloshi, aka Skinwalkers. Like I said, mine comes from a reliable source of a Navajo Nations member who was able to get some of this information out there for us.
So I want to the white ash. You talked a little bit about the residue from the white ash. I find that interesting because the white ash, also known as the American ash, usually grows in coastal regions, but it has been known to go out further. But it's typically found from like Texas over to this coast versus the opposite way. So I'm interested in how white ash became prevalent in the Navajo society when it was all the way on the other side of the United States.
No, when I say white ash, I don't mean white ash trees. I mean white ash as in the
Ash
Oh,
mold.
the ash
ash from a
okay.
fire.
All right, I'm like trying to figure out how white ash trees.
No, I mean the ash from a fire is what they what they say is can combat them, can protect you from them.
Well, maybe I definitely misheard that. I was thinking you were talking about the ash from the residue of a white ash.
I should have been a little bit clearer on that one. I apologize. That's my bad.
I'm still sold. I want to be a skinwalker. I've already figured out who I want to kill. Got it.
Anyway, so that's what I have found when it comes to skinwalkers. Torsten, what's your opinions as the voice of opposition here when it comes to the skinwalker actual lore?
Smoking too much from the pipe.
Okay.
as the resident non-American, the natives, and the laws and their histories
Not
is
natives,
not
it's
well known
indigenous.
over here.
Indigenous peoples.
Potato. Their histories and laws and customs and so on are not well known over here in the UK. I think, well, outside of America. So we rely on popular culture for sort of any sort of information around your indigenous folk and their customs and so on, which I can understand them being very guarded of it because of history.
Mm-hmm.
And not wanting people outside of their tribes and their nations to know anything about them and their customs.
Yeah.
Which then leads to people just making up what they can from what they've heard. So it becomes sort of Chinese whispers of how skinwalkers or any other sort of custom is seen from an outside perspective looking in.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting perspective. I mean, honestly, there are forces and things out there that none of us know about. When it comes to the indigenous peoples of this country, they guard their secrets well. Unless you're actually, you know, taken in by them and accepted by them, they won't tell you jack shit. They'll tell you just enough, but they won't tell you everything.
Yeah.
And personally, I mean, who am I to say that this is bullshit? You know what I mean? Who am I to say that it's real? I'm just some, fucker up here in New Jersey who just sits here wearing Bigfoot t-shirts and does a podcast. But what the fuck do I know?
Yep.
But
then there are some things that we are not meant to know and not meant to understand.
I agree with that. I agree that there are just things in this world that we're just not meant to understand. Just things that we're never meant to fully accept. And
I don't think it's more except I don't think that we have the comprehension.
That's true.
And we're not meant to have it. It goes
not meant to know everything.
From the stories from indigenous Americans, it falls into the same sort of category of sort of like ancient civilizations. Of we cannot comprehend how they done what they done, even to this day. And we're not. I don't think we're meant to. It was a time that has been and gone, and we're now we're on a different trajectory of human evolution and understanding.
I mean, think about it this way. 150 years ago, we'll put it that, 150 years ago, bacteria was still magic. something we didn't understand. Now we know it. We use it in warfare, despite what the public knows. But, you know, bacterial and infections were considered curses before they were found out to be something that could be cured with moldy bread and a right enzyme.
I'm actually allergic to that too.
I know. Well, we're not meant to eat that.
You look at the Great Plague, the Black Plague here in the UK and the rest of
you
Europe.
guys actually have an ability to fight it off. There is a gene, according to the Papa Roanoke, people from Europe and the United Kingdom, they all share a gene that they're able to fight off the Black Plague if they are exposed to it, whereas people here in the States do not.
Because people grew an immunity with any sort of disease, from the common cold to the flu, and things like that. You build up a tolerance, and then that then is imprinted in your genetic code, and that goes down generations. Which is why when Europeans went to the Americas, we brought all these diseases from Europe that we had an immunity to and could fight off, but the indigenous people didn't, and vice versa. There were diseases in other countries that we had never encountered from a European perspective that we went over there, contracted them, and brought them back.
Mm-hmm.
And
it still happens today. It still happens today.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're off topic on this one now. All right. So, final verdict. We all agree that pop culture has royally fucked the legend of the Skinwalker.
Yeah.
Yep.
Michelle?
Agreed.
We all agree that the Skinwalker legend may never be fully fleshed out.
Yes.
Yeah. Unless unless the Navajo decide to divulge all,
which will probably never happen.
Yeah.
But my question is, do we have a better understanding of the true Navajo legend of it?
I would say so. You were very informative.
Yeah. Yeah. I there's so much more about it though. Like there's so much more out there.
There's so much more out there, yes.
I think if people agreed that there's a lot of information, there's a lot of false information, and there's a lot of misleading. So take everything with a grain of salt and do your own research. That's what we do.
And for all those people out there that think that their poodle is a skinwalker, no, your poodle's just fucking weird.
I don't think my cat Sebastian is a skinwalker. I think
he's just a demon.
He's demon, part goat, part yeah, he stole a gummy bear yesterday.
I can respect that.
Granola. This cat's ridiculous. And he broke 2 bowls and he tried to murder a plant.
That's just cat behavior.
He's a kitten. That's what they do.
He's 6 months old now. I think the cat distribution system did me wrong.
Anyway, all right, guys. It's about that time. So let's go ahead and say our goodbyes here. Michelle, you first.
Adios. Have a good weekend. Enjoy your day. See you next week.
Jasper?
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ding dong that doorbell for notifications on our next videos.
Torsten?
Ladies, and catch you all in a week's time.
And from me, thank you so much for joining us again on this very informative episode of Cryptid Conversations. Join us next week when we talk about the Michigan Dog Man. Is it a werewolf? Is it a hybrid species? You be the judge. We'll catch you back here next.
I will judge.
You judge everything.
It's true.
With that being said, have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Have a wonderful week. And like everybody else just said, like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell notification for all of our latest updates. Look for some community contributions, and also make sure you check out our merch page, because we got some interesting merch in the merch store this time around. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us. We will catch you next week. And if you can't be good, be bad. And if you're going to be bad, at least be good at it. Catch you in the next episode of Cryptid Conversations.
Bye.
Bye-bye.